ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Questlove Supreme. I'm your host, Questlove. We have Team Supreme with us. Laia, how are you today?
Trying not to shake, Real
Trying
excited,
not to
real
shake.
excited. Yeah.
And let me just add that this is the first show in which I'm acknowledging that we actually have a YouTube page. And should we remind our listeners that you can watch Questlove Supreme?
You should watch it so you can see the beauty of this man. Yes. And I'm not talking
Exactly.
about Questlove. Yes.
There you go. Oh, exactly. Of course, we know you're talking about our guest. Bill, what's up, bro?
Hey, man. It's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. I'm excited to be here. This is major and excited. Big
Yes,
night.
it is. Sugar Steve, what's up, bro?
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Very excited. I'm feeling beyond the blue horizon. That's how I can describe my feelings.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, this is going to be a quickie. I'm going to try and knock out 60 years worth of magic inside of an hour. So let's see if this goes well.
Anyone can do it. It's us. Let's go.
Yes,
Game on.
of course. Here we go. I will say that, it's been about, we last spoke like a month ago. And we couldn't ask for a better way to come back with today's guest. And today's guest released his first solo album 60 years ago. Our guest today has won 10 Grammys. He has topped the charts. He's collaborated with so many legends. I mean, he's legendary himself, but of course, name it. He's played with Miles Davis, Stevie Wonder, Quincy Jones, Herbie Hancock. And recently, he's released or kind of re-released, although it wasn't officially released. I'd like to get the story behind how do you have a lost album in the archives, but dreams do come true. And we are very excited to have the incomparable Pittsburgh's own Yin's Power, George Benson at Questlove Supreme.
Yeah.
How you? You know what? My mom's from Pittsburgh, and every time I meet someone from Pittsburgh, I try to catch them saying the word Yins. Are you that deep of a Pittsburgh, or you don't? Yins is not in your vocabulary.
Oh, that's okay. I've heard it all my life. But now that I'm out here in the Midwest, that would be as common as breathing.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's good to have you. Wait, can you explain to me how far in the archives was this album, and what was the idea behind releasing it?
Well, many years ago, after having so much success in the music business, I said, what haven't I done? And I thought of something that I always wanted to do, to work with a symphony orchestra, a person who conducted symphony orchestras for a long time, a person who's got great control of the music and the musicians, who's very comfortable with that situation. There's no better place than London and the London Symphony Orchestra. But one thing was missing. I had a lot of arrangers I had worked with over the years. All of them were very competent and very good at what they did. So I went to Quincy Jones, and I said, Quincy, who is the baddest cat on the planet right now? Because, we lost a few people.
Mm-hmm.
He said, George, let me tell you, man, the baddest cat in the world, there's two names. He said, one of them is Robert Farnon.
Mm-hmm.
I said, wow. And where's he? He said, well, he's somewhere in London. He said, but that's the cat I recommend. So I went over to London, and I found a guy who was one of his best friends, and he introduced me to him. And it went by so fast, because the man is an expert. Writing music and conducting an orchestra was like breathing with him.
Okay.
So we got together, and I told him what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure. So I picked a lot of things, some popular things, because I didn't want to go straight classic orchestra and just try to be Frank Sinatra. So we agreed on some things. Next thing I know, I was in the studio, standing next to him, getting ready to do my part, and the orchestra started playing, and I said, oh, boy, I'm not going to be able to do this. I never heard anything like that. 86 pieces, all 87 pieces of the London Symphony Orchestra. and the greatest arranger in the world. And his arrangements were so magnificent, I couldn't even speak. So I said, maybe I'll just sit and listen to the music, take in the environment. And I did that for a couple of days. He did 17 songs. It may have been 2 or 3 days. I took that stuff home back to America, to New York, and I just listened. And I said, well, maybe I can do this song. Maybe I can do this one. And now I have to work on this. This is magnificent. I said, no, I better not try this. So between me and the record company, we had an agreement. We were not going to put it out at that time.
Okay.
Next thing I know, we put it in a warehouse and forgot all about it. During that time, Mr. Farnon passed away.
Oh.
And I was still hearing bits and pieces of the music. And every time I heard it, I said, man, I got to find this music and put it back together. But I never did until recently.
Okay.
I had left Warner Brothers. I was with them for about 21 years with a lot of success. So I left the company and started doing bits and pieces with different record companies. And I had some success there too. But now I went back to Warner's. I said, well, since I'm getting ready to retire, my greatest desire would be to do another record for Warner's, because they got all my good stuff. And I want this to go in with that. So I asked my secretary to arrange a meeting with me and the executives over there. And we had a great meeting. He heard the music and said, wow, we got to put this out. And that was fantastic. There's a lot more to it, but I think you got some other questions you might want to ask.
We're in Nerd's Paradise, so you're right now giving us catnip. No, that's I love when a plan like that comes together. Like, I love when lost albums and lost projects are finalized. And I'm glad that, you know, you had completion. For our fans that listen to the show that are music heads, you can recall when it took Brian Wilson like 50 years to finish the Smile record.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm glad you finished it. Wait, I have a question though. So are you saying that this is the largest orchestra you've ever worked with?
I think so, because I worked with the New York Symphony Orchestra, Los Angeles Symphony Orchestra, Chicago Symphony Orchestra,
Right.
Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. That might have been a full orchestra. Maybe it was 87 pieces. Maybe I've done that 2 or 3 times.
I have a question. I don't want to jump ahead too far in the timeline, but I gotta know. For me, one of my favorite intros of all time is the first 15 seconds of Breezin'.
Yeah.
Just the way that like, to me, the sound of happiness and safety and like whatever, like when I think of like a good fuzzy memory, that song is the soundtrack when I think of, like, you know, just something simple. I mean, it could be going to an amusement park or playing tag or whatever, but for me, but in my mind, that was like at least a 50-piece orchestra. Do you recall like how big the orchestra was for the Breezin' project?
No, because that was a sweetening session. Those
Okay.
were put on after the recordings.
Got it. Okay.
But
Got
it was an incredible situation that happened then.
Okay.
I had a great band full of young, passionate, expert, very creative young musicians. And we were all excited because we've been working together, you know, and we practiced all the time, at least 3 days a week. And when we were on the road, we practiced every day.
Right.
So when we did a gig, actually, the gig was so easy because the rehearsals were so intense. The gig was super easy. And there was a situation that happened. People started calling us to open for superstars.
Right.
And my band was not known yet. I had somewhat of a reputation, but no hit records yet. So whenever they called us to open for somebody, half of the audience left when my show was finished. And I remember I'm the opening act.
Yeah.
So I began to notice that. And they said, George, too bad we're not, that we don't have a hit record. That's the only thing we needed. So through this man, Tommy LaPuma, who had heard me sing 5 years ago before this record was released, he said he couldn't understand why record companies were not using my voice. So I selected him to be my producer at Warner Brothers, whom I had just signed a contract with. And he came up with the song This Masquerade. And
That was the
orchestra you were
first
talking
time
about.
your vocals, that's the first time your vocals were recorded with
Yes.
Masquerade?
Well, that's the first time we had anything meaningful. The rest of them, nobody paid my voice any attention. Even my own manager said, George, you're one of the world's best guitar players, but you ain't no singer. And I said to him, I wasn't insulted because I had given up singing many years before. And I said, it's strange that we could listen to the Chipmunks and give them a break and give them a hearing, but you won't give me one and won't give me a chance. And so, but Tommy LaPuma found the right arranger, which is consistent with what you were talking about earlier. I remember Tommy LaPuma coming to me, asked me, he said, George, what do you think about Klaus Ogerman doing the arrangements for your new album? I had heard some stuff he had done earlier, and I said, yeah, that's the man. And so he went to London, got kicked out of the studio. He didn't book enough time. And so they went to finish the album in Germany. And so you had two different orchestras on this album, but the same arranger, Klaus Ogerman. He sent me the test pressings. I heard that orchestra. I said, wow, these cats have put a tuxedo on me, man. They dressed me right up. And at first, I didn't particularly care that much for This Masquerade. To me, it was just another vocal, and nicely done. I liked what the band did. We only had one take on it, by the way.
What?
There's only one take on that song. Because Tommy LaPuma, after saying he wanted to hear me sing on the record, the instrumentals were going so good, with Breezin and quite a few others. He said, no, I'm not going to put a vocal on this album. I said, man, you made me learn this crazy song. I called it a crazy song. I said, man, let's record at least one time. So they put up a very funky microphone, something people never sing in. They use it on talk programs, one of them long microphones that you would see on the Johnny Carson show. And so when I heard it back, I said, it doesn't sound that bad, except I don't like the mid-ranges. And the great engineer, he turned the button, knocked some of the low end out. I said, oh, that's better. Do it again. He did one more click, click. I said, that's even better. He said, we can stop right there. He said, if I do it one more time, you'll sound like Mickey Mouse. I said, that's it. Leave it right there. Tommy LaPuma ran out of the studio and ran and broke up a meeting they were having at Warner Brothers. The big wigs were at this long oval-shaped table talking about money, And he took all of his recording equipment over because he never does any playbacks without his own stuff. He set up the recording. He said, no, this meeting is over. He's telling the big wigs, the money guys, this meeting is over. You gotta hear this record. So he played This Masquerade. And they said, wait a minute, man, who is that? Who's singing? And he said, George Benson. And they said, but I thought he was a guitar player. He said, well, yeah, but he also sings. So he played the record, and they said, man, when are we going to get that? When are we going to get this? Now, this was before they put the orchestra on.
Wow.
Right. Okay.
He said, I'm not finished with it yet. He said, I got work to do on this record. And I didn't know he was going to do all of this. I didn't know how he was going to get it done. But when he sent me a test pressing, it was hard to believe that it was me all dressed up and with this fabulous orchestra with great songs, one of the baddest bands in the country. These young boys were energetic and fresh and very creative. The album came out. we'll talk about that, what happened later with that, but the album was a monster.
Yeah.
I just
Breeze-
want to know on Masquerade where your mind was when you started the song, like when you started it the way you did with, I guess I would say you were scatting, but you weren't, you were just doing the guitar parts, right? Like,
Yeah, I think they call it legato.
Mhm.
I forget the word they use for that.
uh-huh.
Harvey Mason, one of the world's greatest drummers, and he was young
Mhm.
and energetic then.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Still going strong now.
He always is.
Mm-hmm.
I said, all right, Harvey, count it off. And he started counting 1, 2. And I said, oh, hold it right there. I said, my piano player, Jorge Dalto. I said, Jorge, play these changes. And I played the changes for him. And I said, and loosen it up. We're gonna play legato, no rhythm. I said, and then Harvey, count the time off. So we played those things. I asked Tommy LaPuma, leave the mic up, man. I'm gonna do something with the improvisations in the beginning and in the middle.
Oh, okay.
And he said, okay. He didn't have much confidence in it because he was going to throw the record out anyway. He had made up his mind that the instrumentals were too great to sacrifice to one vocal. So they did that great intro, and that young boy, or young man at the time, he was like in his early 20s. And he was fresh in the band. He had just joined the band from
Ronnie Foster?
Argentina.
Oh, you mean Jorge Dalton?
Jorge Dalto.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because there was a great thing about those two playing together. But Jorge did that intro and played that semi-classical accompaniment behind my vocal, which gave it a whole new, fresh approach. And we only did it one time.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy LaPuma said to me, George, we could be here all night. It'll never get better than that. I said, I think you're right. So I left it alone. And here comes Bobby Womack getting ready to record Breezin with me because I begged that he come to the studio and give me something fresh to play on the record. And he came in the studio and he said, hey, man, during the playback, who in the world? And he didn't use the word world.
Mm-hmm.
He just had an H on it.
Right.
Who in the got a voice like that? Tommy LaPuma said, that's George Benson, man. He said, but I thought George Benson is a guitar player. He said, yeah, but he also sings.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning. It let us know that this record was going to be something special.
You know, it's weird. I remember in my dad's band, musicians arguing. The first time I heard musicians sort of having like kind of a heated debate, my dad's bass player would have put his entire life in saying that this Masquerade was Donny Hathaway.
Ooh.
He's like, nah, man, that's Donny Hathaway.
Ooh, yeah.
And I remember, even though I was 7 at the time, but I definitely, because I this is the first time I'm hearing of you. And I remember another George, my dad's sax player, like, no, man, I'm telling you, this is George Benson. George Benson, the guitar player. No, man, this is Donny Hathaway. And they were just like, that was the first time I seen like almost, it wasn't pugilistic, but it was like almost an argument brewing. Like, of course, they had other history of tension, but I definitely remember because I was under the impression that that was Donny Hathaway singing. And that argument lasted for like almost 10 minutes and got really heated. So I always wanted to know that. That's another thing. I was not aware that Bobby Womack had written Breezin. How did you know about that song to even ask him for it?
It's another incredible story.
We're here for it.
The original version was by Gabor Szabo,
Mm-hmm.
and he was from Hungary. I remember when he first came to the United States during the Hungarian Revolution in the mid-50s, and he played with Chico Hamilton's band. That was a great jazz ensemble. So I heard them play live when I was a kid. I was a teenager. And then this record came out, Breezin.
Mhm.
It was super funky. I mean, it was really a unique record because he played folk music basically, but he wanted to be a jazz player. The ironic thing is, my piano player was like that about Argentine, where he came from. He wanted to be a jazz player, but he played Argentine folk music when he grew up. So they were adding that kind of romantic feeling to their jazz, which gave it a unique flavor.
Mhm.
So I would never stop cats from being who they are. I didn't force them to be who I wanted them to be. I let them be who they are. And that works better. I learned that from Miles Davis. Don't tell them what to play or how to play it. Just let them be themselves. So anyway, I never thought about me playing that song because I never thought anybody could come up to that vibe they had on that record. And actually, the song was written by both men,
Okay.
written by Gabor Szabo and Bobby Womack. And Gabor, he didn't want to have nothing to do with it because he didn't care about things like that. He had a little problem, some chemical problems,
Mhm.
and so he didn't care about things like that. But that record, he would have made a fortune like Bobby Womack did. And so that's how it got off the ground. And when Tommy LaPuma asked me to record it, I said, absolutely not. I'm not gonna make that record. He said, why not? I said, man, that's not me, man. People have been trying to get me to record it or to play it live, and I wouldn't do it. I almost got into rumbles with people, several times. So when he asked me to do it, I said, oh, here it comes again.
Okay.
And then I woke up. I've had to do this many times in my career. This was one of the times where it worked beautifully. I said, Tommy, if you can get Bobby Womack to come to the studio, maybe he can add something to the record that's not there. Maybe he can help do something different to make the record, give it another twist. So he called Bobby, and that's when Bobby entered into the studio listening to the playback of this Masquerade and asking who it was. Now it was his turn. He said, man, there was always something I wanted to put on this record and I didn't get a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's that, man? He said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, because that's what was not on the original recording.
Right. Okay.
And even though I don't think my version is as good as the original recording, I like it better because it's another twist to the song and it made it sound more contemporary. So that was the difference between that version. That's how they got off the ground.
Okay. So right now I'm just going with the breeze because, I know our time is limited. The 70s were a very peculiar time for jazz artists. After kind of like a 20-year, let's say between 1940 and, all right, let's say 30 years, between 1940 and 1970, there was this like serious jazz movement. And of course, once certain figures in the art form were sort of stretching the boundaries with, Coltrane stretching the vocabulary and what Miles was doing and whatnot. However, I'm always curious, and I always ask people that were like serious because, I had to sort of work backwards. It's because of hip hop that I realized how serious of a jazz artist you were because, by the time I discovered you, you were already singing. So I knew you as a singer, but it wasn't until hip hop sampling that I was like, oh my God, like George Benson is one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. But let me ask you, when it came to the transition of doing pop music, and it's not just you, James Mtume, Reggie Lucas, Narada Michael Walden, like a lot of these serious musician cats in the mid-70s sort of made this decision to migrate to not even just soul music, but like to pop music. So at the time, did you have any trepidation whatsoever of like, wait a minute, I'm a serious jazz artist and now you want me to sing pop? Like, were you worried at all about like if Downbeat magazine was going to roast you or for going pop or whatnot? Like, was that even a concern?
It was a very trying time for a lot of musicians. The ones you mentioned, the cats I worked with in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about James Toomey.
Mhm.
He still owes me some money, man. He
Oh.
never did pay for the sessions he used to do at my house. He used to come over. I had a recording studio in my garage, and he'd bring guys over and try out new stuff. And he brought Reggie Lucas over. We became friends.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole trip, man. Norman Connors, working with the girl from my hometown. I
Phyllis
forget-
Hyman.
Phyllis Hyman. She was from Pittsburgh. People
Pittsburgh.
think she's from Philly, but she's
Yeah, we
She
did.
from Pittsburgh. She from
Okay.
Pittsburgh.
from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Mhm. And we were all going through it. There was no way we were going to get the prestige that had been earned by so many of those great people that you talked about earlier. Miles Davis, they had 40 years on us,
Mhm.
30 years on us, 20 years on us. We were just coming up kids, youngsters in New York.
Mhm.
We were like the new lions, but we had nothing of our own that could give us, a seat beside these monstrous musicians who taught us how to play, and set up this wonderful music called bebop and modern jazz and the new stuff, the acid, what the kids call acid jazz. But that was a very, very trying time. I learned that first thing you need, it begins with a great song. Breezin taught me that.
Mhm.
I never would have been able to cross over without Breezin. Breezin was a very well-loved song. No, not Breezin only. The Breezin album I'm speaking of,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
which the song This Masquerade came out of.
Right.
The lyric lent itself to a whole different society because they already loved the composer of the song.
Mhm.
And I had never heard it before. When Tommy LaPuma asked me if I heard it before, you ever heard this song? I said, no. And I didn't particularly care about it. I said, that's not for my kind of artist. And when I found out who it was, Jorge, my piano player, his wife said, oh, that's Leon Russell. I said to myself, who in the heck is Leon Russell? I didn't know anything about him, never heard of him. She said, that's my favorite artist. I said, oh, I better learn this song. Because Tommy sent it to me 2 or 3 times and I wouldn't even listen to it more than once. So I learned the song. That's why when we went back and he said, we're not going to record it. I said, what? After you made me learn this crazy song, man, we're not going to record it. So to get rid of me, he said, okay, we'll record it one time. Let's do it. In other words, let's get it over with.
Mhm.
So that song came out as the greatest surprise of my life because it went so far. And you were speaking about Donny Hathaway.
Mhm.
The other guy they thought it might be was Stevie Wonder
Yes.
because he hadn't a record out in years. He hadn't recorded something out in like maybe a year or 2.
Mhm. He took 2 years off.
So when it came out, they said, "Oh, gotta be Stevie Wonder." That's the only person I can think of.
Right.
And like your dad, they swore it was me. That it was him, or either, like you said, Donny Hathaway.
Right.
So that's what got the record the airplay that it needed. They would give the record away if you could tell them who it was. And very few people guessed who it was on the record. They all said, "Oh, I know who that is. Everybody knows that's Stevie Wonder, or that's Donny Hathaway." And
Yes.
that got us the airplay we needed in places we never would have gotten without it.
So in the winter of 1977, you're sitting down in a theater and you hear this. You hear the nominees for Record of the Year is 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon, Afternoon Delight by Starland Vocal Band,
Wow.
I Write the Songs by Barry Manilow,
Wow.
and If You Leave Me Now by Chicago.
Mm.
When they say, and the winner is, previous to that moment, did you really think, and mind you, this is also the year of Songs in the Key of Life. Did you really think you had a chance in hell to win Record of the Year above those records?
And you used the
Beforehand,
right
beforehand.
word, not a chance in H. No, I didn't have a chance. But I love the other records, the big ones. If You Leave Me Now by Chicago,
Yeah.
that was a spectacular recording. And you could knock Barry Manilow out of nothing because he had nothing but multi-platinum records all of his career, just about. So I got up early, hoping I could beat people to the parking lot because there was a lot of people in that place. And I had already won 2 Grammys, so I was very, very happy. I said, oh, man, I'm going to go home and start bragging about my 2 Grammys.
Right.
So I got up, and Barbara Streisand said, and the winner is George Benson. I startled, man, and looked around. I couldn't believe she had just said that, you know. And I looked over at Tommy LaPoole to find him. I knew he's in the theater somewhere. I went up front, and when Tommy came up, I kissed him on his bald head. I don't believe I did that. I saw that later. But that was the most incredible thing that ever happened to me in my life. And it showed me that nothing is impossible. That this album I came out with, this fresh and new, called Dreams Do Come True, has a lot to do with that concept, that idea, that way of thinking. Nothing is impossible, man.
So when you're in that moment and I think that night you won 4 altogether, correct?
I won 3.
Okay, 3.
And there were 2 more that came toward the album, though, for other people, but the engineer, Al Schmidt,
Right.
and I think Tommy LaPoole, producer.
Right.
So we won 5 Grammys that year.
Like, how does your life change that night when you go to sleep and you go to bed and you wake up the next morning as a 5-time, that project winning 5 Grammys? Like, what happens to you after that?
It's like I had been born on another planet, reborn. And the name of the planet was George Benson, because everything came to me. Everything I ever imagined came to me. They came through my management. Everybody wanted to get in touch with us for something. And I was not used to that kind of attention. My mind was still on kicking butt on the guitar with my bad band. You know, we had a great band, you know. And I couldn't think beyond that because I've never been that big of a star. You know, I've been known by people in the jazz world and R&B world and some of the pop world. But that kind of fame was highly unknown. But I began to see the world differently after that. There was a lot more to conquer. We were in a position we could either help or hurt what was going on in the world musically. Jazz musicians were mad at us. The R&B people didn't know what the heck it is we were trying to accomplish, because we weren't sounding like Motown. And you couldn't anyway. Nobody could compete with Marvin Gaye, man, or Stevie Wonder, so I didn't even try that stuff. One thing that time taught me, all the time it took me to gain the success that I got through the album Breezin. Remember, I was 33 years old when that happened. So I considered myself an old man, you know. I said, man, I'm getting out of this business. I'm tired.
Wow.
You know?
No.
So many more albums after that. That's wild.
Oh, wow, man. Let me see. Since that was the first with Warner's, and I think I did, I don't know, 14 albums with Warner's, 21 albums. I can't remember now. And with other people. In total, I think I've recorded about 70 albums. But there are 200 and something with my name on the cover. So a lot has transpired. But what a responsibility.
Yeah.
This is a question I always wanted to ask and never knew the answer to because it's not in the liner notes. But can you please settle this for me? Are you playing On Another Star by Stevie Wonder on Songs in the Key of Life? Is that you scatting at the end?
That's me. That's me. Plus, I'm singing along with Wonder Love. La 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 la.
You're not in the liner notes, but I kept hearing your voice because at the end you just start scatting. And right on the fade out, you can hear you right there, you hear the scatting, and I was like, yo, is that him? Like,
does that mean it was a favor?
Well, Stevie used to kind of just grab people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true too. He was that kind of guy, but I let him be who he is. That's what makes him so great.
Yeah.
He's always coming with something that you don't expect, and it's always A1. What he does is so classy.
Mhm.
And I think that's why we got along very well. He was coming to my shows when I was playing on the Chitlin circuit. He would show up at a nightclub somewhere in America,
Mhm.
mostly on the East Coast, because he was going with a girl who he later married when he did the song, Isn't She Lovely?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So one day he came to the club where I was playing that night, and nobody believed it was him. He was so popular, you couldn't convince anybody in the place, even though I said, Steve, I think he might have came up and played something for us. But nobody believed that Stevie Wonder was in the club. But he was on a lot of the gigs that I did. He'd show up and he would always toot for us. And live television shows. We'd be doing live TV in Hollywood, and he'd burst out from the back of the curtain and jump on the, in front of the camera. Only he could get away with that kind of thing.
Be funny.
I've always loved him. I've loved him since I think I first heard him when he was about 14 or 15 years old. I knew
Okay.
he was not going to be ordinary.
George,
Okay.
can I ask you about another collaborator real quick? Because we talking about Breezin, and you actually redid this song with him with lyrics, which I thought was kind of ill. And y'all are both, to me, like the voices of our generation. Jarreau, like how wondrous is collaborating with Jarreau?
He's one of those guys that come along. There's only one of them in every
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. He's so original. From the time he opens his mouth, you know who it is, and then you know it's going to be good. And going on the road with him it took some rough thinking. Career-wise, we were way ahead. We made a lot of money. We had a lot of prestige all over the world, and we were always first on the on the marquee outside. It would be George Benson and Al Jarreau. A lot of people didn't like that because they love Al Jarreau. I said, guess what?
You toured together?
Yeah, we worked together.
Okay. After you ask this, I got $1 million question to ask you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I felt strange about us being on the show, and he wasn't used to being second to nobody. Matter of fact, we both joined Warner Brothers on the same day. We auditioned at the place where one of the Kennedys was murdered. It was a hotel. And this was a couple of years after that, a few years after that. And we both sang or performed the same song, Take 5. And his version was pretty slick.
okay.
He's so great.
Right.
And so we went on tour, and we found some songs, and a couple of them he wasn't comfortable with. He said, George, why do you want me to do that song? I said, Al, it wouldn't make any difference what you did. Your voice is unique, and I think people need to hear you do this kind of song because you're not known for this, but they should hear you do this kind of thing to let them know you can sing anything. And so we ended up doing some crazy things together. They came out great. One was that last song in the show about seeing you again. Till next time, I can't remember the title, but it came out great. We made lots of money, and we knocked them out everywhere in the world.
I know you did.
did. It was great, man.
Okay. This is mainly a question about Al Schmitt, because I think Al Schmitt's engineering is so unique sounding that this is what I want to know. Number one, did you, and I got to know what is, for me, your Weekend in LA album, and also Al Jarreau's Look to the Rainbow album, both engineered by him, have such a distinct sound to it that I swear to God, you guys recorded it in the studio and just overdubbed the audience on top of it. Like, I've never heard it. It sounds too perfect to be a live album. But did you guys record, like, were you guys recording your live albums on, like, while on tour together, or was that just,
Well, I can tell you this, my friend.
yeah.
And you asked some great questions. That's one of them. Al Schmidt, who used to set up the microphones for his uncle, I believe it was,
Mhm.
when he was a youngster, when Al was young, his uncle would say, well, go set, I got a session today, go over and set up the microphones for me, so and get it ready for me. So he knew exactly where to place microphones to get the sound that he wanted. And by the time I got there, he was already, he had finished up all of that because he never was involved in that while we were recording.
Oh, okay.
He did it all in front. He'd listen, he'd go in the studio and he'd go next to the drums and he'd replace the microphone, so forth and so on. I was embarrassed one day when I got ready to say to him, you know, the piano sounds a little bit thin to me. I was almost in tears. Why doesn't he put some bass on that microphone, man? I'm going to tell him about that. Then something said, man, leave it alone, man. When I heard those recordings back, I said, man, that would have been the biggest mistake I ever made in my life.
Wow.
Because his stuff was always right on the money. But he told me the story of how he got to be Al Schmidt.
Tell me.
He said that, because, you know, he used to do Sam Cooke records years ago.
Yeah.
One day we had a big run-in because I'm dealing with, like you said, about heated arguments or heated discussions.
Mhm.
There's always something like that between producers and artists. And Tommy LaPuma, who did not like to argue, he would keep his mouth shut, but you could tell what he was feeling because he would hint to his feelings on things. One day we were arguing about a live album, Weekend in L.A.
Yes.
We were at the club in Hollywood. I forget the name of it.
The
now.
Roxy, I believe.
The Roxy Theater.
Yeah.
The Roxy Theater it was either on Hollywood or Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset. Mm-hmm.
My father, who had begged me to take him out to California with him he heard I was going to California. He said, man, I haven't seen my dad, your grandfather, for 20 years. And I said, okay, Dad, come on with me. Now you have a lot of fun. So my grandfather was there, my dad was there, Shaka Khan was there, Aretha Franklin. They were down front having a discussion. Aretha Franklin had to fend off Shaka Khan because she wanted to jump on the bandstand and have a battle with her. I said, not on my set. No. It was incredible, man. Well, here's the biggie with that. The first night, the second show, we did that version that you hear of on Broadway.
Yes.
Now remember, that was not a song that was in my playlist outside of the theater. We decided to record it. And so I had to dream of something to do with it.
Right.
And it was Quincy Jones, again, who gave me the thought. I said, now, wait a minute now. Why should I pay this any attention? He gave me a clue. He said, you know, George, many years ago, everything used to be a one-bar phrase. Now it's a two-bar phrase. I said, what the heck is he talking about? Because I don't measure music. I just play it.
Oh.
So, you know, I just play it. And when it comes to my thought, my brain, I let it hang out, let my brain handle it, and my vibe, my feelings, pour it out to the people, you know. So when he said that, two-bar phrase, it bothered me. I had to find out what he was talking about. Then I heard a song by Rod Temperton.
Okay.
Boom, be doom, boom, be doom, pop, bang, be dang. First bar was, I said, oh, that's 2 bars. That phrase finishes after 2 bars. First half is boom, be doom, boom, be doom, 4 beats. 1 beat again, boom, be doom, 4. Oh, I got it. So when Tommy LaPuma asked me to do On Broadway, I said, oh, no, man. He said, what do you mean? I said, I can't destroy that song, man. That's a classic. And in my mind, I was thinking it was Benny King. I thought it was Benny King, but it wasn't. The cat who sang the original version for the Drifters, man, what a vocalist he was. If I had remembered that, I would not have recorded it either. But I didn't remember who that was that sang that. So his name was Rudy.
Okay.
He was a gospel singer originally. So anyway, now I rearranged the song because it was boring to me to go boom, boom, boom. Those little neon lights are bright. Boom, 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 boom. I said, oh man, no, we can't do that for 10 minutes. So I changed it to boom, 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 to make it a 2-part phrase.
Right.
Then I made it staccato to give it some fire. Boom, 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 box, boom, 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 boom. One of the guys in my band said, "Nah, Josh, that won't work." I said, what do you mean? What do you mean that won't work? He said, "No, it won't work, Josh. That's not the way the song goes." I said, "Man, you wasn't even here. You wasn't even born yet. What are you talking about? It won't work." He said, "I'm telling you, man, it won't work. I'm just telling you." I said, "There's a reason why I'm sitting up here in this leader's seat. I gotta find work for us, and the way I find work is to keep the fire going, man."
Right.
I said, "No, this is the way we're gonna record it." I said, "Can you play that?" He said, "Oh yeah, I can play it." And he played the crap out of it. He tore it up. His name was Stanley Banks.
Okay.
Great bass player. And so Tommy LaPuma, when we went to hear all of the tracks back, first of all, I have to tell you this.
So
When I took that track on a cassette that Al Schmidt made for me so I could listen to what we had done that night,
right.
I took it back to the hotel, and on the patio near the pool, somebody had a boom box, and we played it, and they would not let me take it off. "Play it again!" People was calling from upstairs. "Play it again!" So we played it. And I said, "Man, I got a hot one in my hand." The next day, Tommy LaPuma says, and he played the first version of it that we did on the first show. I said, "Where's the other version?" He said, "What other version?" I said, "Man, the one Friday night, second show."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "George, I think we erased it, man." I said, "No, Tommy, no. How's that possible?" He said, "We needed more tape. We kept running out of tape, so I went back at the earlier tapes, which I thought was not good, and we put them on because we didn't have enough tape." He didn't. That wasn't the real story. He wanted to take the
version you like better.
yes.
Yeah.
So
The version
said,
he liked
"Tommy."
better, was it shorter or just more laid back or?
Yeah, he wanted it to sound like the original.
Oh, hell no.
No.
So none of those
Yes.
ad libs that you got on there. and-
Oh, he tried to tell you he erased the version that we all know?
Yeah.
Oh no.
He told me he erased it.
Oh no.
I got up and walked out and I said, "Man, you mean the best record I ever made? You erased it?" I walked 1 mile back to the hotel. When I got there, he called me up and said, "George, come on back, man. I think I found it." When I got in there, I didn't believe they had found it. I was still apprehensive. I said, "Man, he's going to play me another strange version." So I sat down. I said, "Now, play me the hit, man. Please." And he put that on. I heard it, boom, boom. And I could hear Shaka Khan in the background. I said, "That's it. That's the one I'm talking about." And Tommy said, "That is better." I said, "Man, get out of here. Better? That's a knockout."
I'm gonna tell you, the very first performance I ever gave as a drummer. I'm gonna tell you how popular this song was in '77. Literally for my second grade. By the second grade, I could actually sit and reach the drum set. And we had to give like a recital, music recital. And it was my turn. We went in alphabetical order, so I was last. And you're supposed to walk up to the microphone. "My name's Ahmir Thompson, and I'm 6 years old, and I'm in the second grade, and I'm gonna play Harvey Mason playing on Broadway." And literally that drum break that they do, boom, 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 ga, 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 boom, 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 ga. I did that, and that was a moment in which the audience exploded. Like that moment made my life. That was the first time I like drummed in public. That's the first time my mom and dad knew I had drumming talent. Like my mom's crying. Like
Oh,
that's literally how powerful On Broadway was when it came out. I have so many questions to ask you, but I know we only have a little bit, so we're definitely going to have to
do it again. Ahmir, can I ask for one
Yes,
song? Just
absolutely.
one song. And I just want to, I'm gonna mention one and I want to ask about one. I want to mention Moody's Move for Love because I want to say to you, sir, that for some of us, you were the introduction to that song. Like there was no James Moody, it was just George
Yeah.
Benson. And so from then on, so thank you for that because I've been in love with that song ever since and everybody's version after that. So, but my question is about 2020. Can you just talk about 2020 and the decision to do that and just tell me something about the song?
I've had the good fortune of surrounding myself with geniuses, young musicians who were extra talented. And one was a fellow named Randy Waldman.
Mm-hmm.
When Randy Waldman was a kid, his father caught him coming from school late and said, wait a minute, now where in the world have you been all this time? He said, well, I stopped off at a baseball field. I was playing baseball. He said, I thought you said you wanted to play piano. He said, well, I do. He said, well, get your in here every day and play piano. Not baseball, piano. I want you here every day. And when you hear him play, you know how that paid off. He ended up working with Barbra Streisand for about 25 years as her musical director and principal pianist. And he did some wonderful things with an R&B group. He wrote one of their smashes, well, he arranged it. He's done nothing but spectacular work. He can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, we were working on an album, and the producer said, I got this song here sent to me by such and such, and they want you to see if you like it. So they played it for me, and I said, it's got potential. He didn't pay me any mind. He sent it to Randy Waldman, who sat up in his kitchen and played all those beautiful parts. Ba-dum bum bum, ba-dum bum 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 bum, boom boom, ba-dum bum bum, ba-dum bum 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 bum. So when he sent it to us, I said, what am I supposed to do with this, man? But once I got into it, it fell out of my mouth, all the parts. And then we had Patty Austin.
Yes, Patty Austin.
She jumped on that song and did all of the harmony to all my parts, all my ad-libs. And man, she knocked that song out of the park. It was so popular, I couldn't believe it. And a pleasure to play.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, Brother Benson, look, our hour is up, but we absolutely must have a part 2 because I think the entire world. Steve, do you have one question?
I can wait till part 2. I wanted to ask some CTI questions.
Yes,
but,
exactly. We have so many of your jazz life.
Some West Montgomery questions. There's
yes,
a lot to be said.
Yeah, you're almost like a 9-hour episode, but unfortunately we have to stop at this hour. But
and happy retirement because he mentioned that, and this is going to be the last year people can see you, right? Do your live thing.
I'm not sure about that. I had to stop the regimen of being on the road because I've been on the road for 62 years.
Yeah.
Woo! Top that, Ahmir.
Wow.
Exactly.
I
No,
started
we'll come to you. We'll come to you.
Yes, we will. Yes. Yes.
You know something? I like this. This is fine.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I want to remind our audience definitely, Dreams Do Come True is available. That's your latest album, your latest archive album.
Oh, and he'll be at the Hollywood Bowl August 18th. Wanted to mention that as well, because that's going to be a hell of a show.
Okay. All right. I might have to, I'm in Europe. I might have to quit the Roots then. No, but for real, thank you very much for doing this. And again, we have to have another conversation because this is way too important. Too much, too many memories here. But on behalf of Umpe Bill and Sugar Steve and Laia and myself, Questlove, the incomparable George Clinton. Oh,
Hey, that's good enough. I like that. Oh, by the way, I'm writing something for George Clinton now. We're going to make a record together, believe it or not.
What?
You got to do it. Anyway, the incomparable George Benson, the one and only George Benson. Thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And we will see you on the next go round of Questlove Supreme. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.